Welcome again to our session. It is a continuation of what we started earlier on. And recall, in our last class, my good students, we had introduced the concept of tax dispute, that is a resolution mechanism, of which in our last session we had looked at a tax dispute resolution process cycle, which we had this table. So in our class today, a continuation of that, so in this class we'll be talking about alternative dispute resolution measures. Other than just using the court and tribunals, what are other alternatives that you can adopt for us to resolve this aspect of tax dispute? And that is what Mwalimu will want to discuss today. So in that case, we should be looking at types of disputes eligible for alternative dispute resolution. So talk about types of disputes, types of tax disputes, types of tax disputes, eligible for alternative types of tax disputes, eligible for alternative, eligible for alternative, eligible for alternative dispute resolution, dispute resolution. So that is what I'll want us to talk about today, types of tax disputes eligible for alternative dispute resolution. But before that, it will be very important for us to understand anytime you are talking about alternative dispute resolution, what should click at the back of our mind. So first thing first that you're going to start with, it will be very important for us to understand what is this alternative dispute resolution. 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 Commonly known as ADR. Commonly known as what? ADR. So anytime you're talking about alternative dispute resolution in tax, my good students, what will you be talking about? You'll find that it is an alternative method of resolving and managing tax disputes outside the judicial process. We are looking at it as a form, or rather alternative method of resolving and managing tax disputes outside the judicial process, outside the judicial process, and also talk about outside the quasi-judicial process. Quasi-judicial process. And when we're talking about quasi-courts, or rather quasi-judicial process, basically what you are looking at here is what? Tax appeals tribunal. Tax appeals tribunals. So all other methods that you're going to use, other than using either court or tax, may be tribunals. So you'll find that at this point, it is a mechanism that expedites on resolution of tax disputes. It fastens the aspect of the tax disputes. And parties involved during the alternative dispute resolution, we normally tend to have these parties that are usually involved in such an arrangement. Parties involved in such an arrangement. We normally tend to talk about the taxpayer who is involved. Taxpayer. We'll also be talking about commissioner of the domestic, or rather commissioner of tax. Commissioner. We'll also be talking about facilitator. Facilitator. So these are the parties which are normally involved in this alternative dispute resolution. And I know majority of us, whenever we talk about alternative dispute resolution, we know very well that maybe some of us think that it is that aspect of us going to kind of part ourselves with something for us to be assisted in one or the other, right? Which at times is kind of not allowed, but it always is also one way for fastening our dispute resolution with the tax authorities. So we are saying that the parties that are going to be involved in such a resolution process We normally tend to talk about the taxpayers, talk about commissioner, talk about facilitators. These are the parties that are involved. And maybe one big question that you're going to ask ourselves is, what are the roles of these parties which are going to be involved in this? Talk about the roles of the parties, talk about roles of parties involved, roles of parties involved. What are their roles? What are their roles? So number one role, you'll find that is to uphold and maintain confidentiality. You'll find that they are supposed to maintain confidentiality. Number two, participate in all discussions fairly and diligently. Participates in all discussions fairly and diligently. Talk about attend all scheduled meetings. Attend all scheduled meetings. Also, we'll be talking about strictly adhere to the agreed timelines. Strictly adhere to the agreed timelines. So basically, these are some of talk about the roles of the parties which are going to be involved in this form of resolution process. Then the big question will be, why ADR? What's the importance of us using alternative dispute resolution? That is what I'll also want us to analyze in our session. Importance. Why ADR? What are the importance that will come about using our ADR, alternative dispute resolution process? Number one, you'll find that at this point, it is very cost effective, first of all. Cost effective. Number two, we normally tend to talk about the aspect of confidential. It is very confidential. Number three, we are talking about, in this case, you'll find that delays in the conclusion of cases before courts and tribunals. At this point, it is quicker, meaning that it is faster to do that. Also, you'll find that there is uncertainty over the outcome of a case for both KRA and the taxpayers. We'll also be talking about, you'll find that at this point, there's higher compliance levels as parties are more likely to abide by the negotiated outcome. This high compliance level. Talk about high compliance level. High compliance level. High compliance level, as parties will kind of agree on what they have set in mind to do. So there's that aspect of a high compliance level in relation to that. So the moment you're able to understand all this process of ADR, probably a key question will be, what are the disputes appropriate for ADR? Tax disputes eligible for ADR. Tax disputes eligible for ADR. So in this case, talk about at this point disputes appropriate for ADR. That is what I want us to analyze. Disputes appropriate. Disputes appropriate. Disputes appropriate for ADR. Disputes appropriate for ADR. What are these disputes that are appropriate for ADR or eligible for ADR? Number one, we are talking about disputes on which tax assessment has not been confirmed. So talk about disputes. Number one, disputes on which tax assessment, disputes on which tax assessment has not yet been confirmed, has not been confirmed. Number two, talk about the aspect of disputes on which tax assessment has been confirmed, but the parties mutually agree to, we are saying that disputes on which assessment, disputes on which assessment has been confirmed, but the parties mutually agree to a self-review. mutually agree, but the parties mutually agree, but the parties mutually agree to a self-review, to a self-review, to a self-review. So those are also some of the items that we need to consider, or rather aspects of disputes that are eligible. Number 3, we'll also be talking about disputes before courts, disputes before courts / tax appeals tribunals / tax appeals tribunals / tax appeals tribunals / tax appeal tribunals, but where the parties desire an out-of-court settlement. But where the parties desire, but where the parties desire, but where the parties desire an out-of-court settlement, an out-of-court settlement, an out-of-court settlement. So that is also, these are some of the disputes that will be appropriate for ADR. But also we should be able to understand that there are those disputes or scenarios which are exempted from alternative dispute resolution measures. There are these other disputes which are exempted from ADR, and that is what I want us to talk about, scenarios that are exempted, or talk about exemptions from ADR, alternative dispute resolution, exemptions from ADR. Number 1, we are talking about the settlement will be contrary to the Constitution. The settlement will be contrary to the Constitution, the revenue laws, or any enabling laws. It will be contrary, meaning that it is not in line. Talk about the matter borders of technical interpretation of law. That is, of course, those are outside borders. It is in the public interest to have a judicial clarification of the issue, whereby it is a must, or it is in the interest of the public, because probably such a dispute has reached to the extent that public are in aspect of maybe idea of the same. So in this case, we will be looking at a point whereby it is of the public interest to know what will happen. There are undisputed judgments and rulings. Talk about a party is unwilling to engage in ADR process. A party is unwilling to engage in the ADR process. A party is unwilling to engage in the ADR process. So these are scenarios which alternative dispute resolution measures won't apply. Those are the alternatives which dispute resolution measures won't apply. So the moment you're able to understand that concept, my good students, also at that point, I'll also want us to have a look at the ADR process, which the beauty part of it is that Mwalimu has given you the notes on this. I'll want you to go through the ADR process in our notes just below these videos, and also we'll be looking at scenario why the ADR at times will not succeed. So to that point, thank you so much, and let us meet in the next session. Thank you.